This week's episode is brought to you by Eric McCool. Thank you, Eric McCool. It's with the generous support of listeners just like you that helped keep our global network of communal cult centers stocked with tambourines, purple aura-enhancing organic carrots, cybernetic demon cleaners, and soul refraction antimatter phase laser pistols we issue to our new recruits as a means of defending the secrecy which fuels our esoteric meta-religion that only our future incarnations will understand after listening to our episodes backwards under the full moon. If you'd like to help keep our fanatical army of cultists well stocked for the upcoming apocalypse, or just to hear the second half of this episode, please visit www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where your monthly donation of just $5 will not only get you the entirety of this episode, but all our episodes in a conveniently accessible format compatible with Spotify. But that's not all. Sign up right now and I'll send you a high-quality gourmet thought-tracking 5x5 vinyl sticker of our Big Bunny Baphomet cover art and the secret keys to our Discord server where you can join in the secrets of the temple and become an elite inner order initiate of the mysteries. Special thanks to the folks who continue to donate to Hecka Astra's GoFundMe. If you'd like to contribute, check out the link in the description. On this week's episode, we divide and conquer by each presenting 3 different death cults from 3 different time periods on 3 entirely separate continents, all of which there's a good chance you've never heard of. In the free section of the show, Mari presents the modern-day Shakahola Starvation cult of Africa, which features a staggering body count. Afterwards, Malachor presents a Los Angeles-based angel-channeling doomsday cult from the turn of the century, one of the only death cults known to be run by women and has an equally unexpected conclusion. In the extended version of the show, I present the true tale of the Knights of the Solar Temple, who operated across France, Switzerland, and Canada in the mid to late 80s, who were known for blending Rosicrucian rituals, New Age philosophy, and crypto-fascism into a deadly concoction that claimed the lives of numerous wealthy and connected members in a massive blaze of murder and self-immolation. Thank you, and enjoy the show. Did you know there was a cult leader for the visually impaired?
What?
They follow their leader blindly.
Oh.
What's the hardest cult to join?
What?
A difficult?
Oh.
I was gonna make a Jonestown cult joke, but the punchline's too long.
Oh no. That's so bad.
Hello everybody, and welcome to The Whole Rabbit, where we don't just tell you that the end is near and the only way to avoid imminent catastrophe is to catastrophically end it before it ends you. Nay, we take refuge in the eternal struggle of life's unfulfilling awkwardness and alleviate the pain by pointing our fingers at the folks who were gullible enough to fall victim to the predatory personality who promised them otherwise in exchange for their love, loyalty, and dignity. Because this week, we're discussing death cults. 3 of them, in fact, from 3 entirely different continents. I'm your beloved cult leader, Hack Rabbit, also known amongst the unworthy mortals outside the group as Luke Madrid. I'm joined this week by the motherly mind manipulator, Mari Sama.
Greetings, followers.
The master of murdering members, Malachor 5.
Oh, look, a rusty scalpel.
And the heretic humbling high priestess, Hecka Astra.
Hello. Thank you for joining us today.
Please remove your socks. There is grass.
And carrots. And don't stand up too high on your back legs because there's lasers getting shot all around us.
You know, my cult that I researched, they weren't even allowed to walk on grass unless they were barefoot.
Oh, literal touch grass.
Like you had to touch grass. If you touched grass with shoes, you get a spanking.
I guess to kick the ball into play on this topic, I wonder exactly what people's thoughts are and what the difference is between a cult and a religion. We have, at least in America, the freedom of religion as a right. It's written in our Constitution. But what exactly do you guys think that entails?
Well, when I was growing up, a lot of people were saying that religions always started out as a cult. So for a long time, I just thought that cults were just small groups of seedling religions, and they may or may not turn out to be like a massively followed thing.
I guess the word cult on its own without adding the word death to it doesn't necessarily mean it's nefarious.
No, absolutely not. In fact, that's one of the issues that you face when you bring up Hinduism, is that there is no, like, Hinduism. It's just a bunch of different cults, and they can be devoted to different gods and have slightly different guidelines and moral beliefs and practices, etc. But together, they constitute what is known as the eternal Dharma, or what we call Hinduism. And then, if you look at Christianity, it's a bunch of different cults. It just so happens that Catholicism is like the really, really, really big one.
And it tried to unite all of the other existing small ones together when it was founded. But, there's always going to be small outliers and things like that, like breakaway organizations that form, which would still be considered a cult if it's a small enough group.
And then before Constantine decided it was the state religion, Christianity was a weird little cult.
Yep.
Yeah, even in scripture, there's questionable individuals, like Isaiah, for example. He used to walk around naked while he preached. And
Ooh.
I'm down.
the Hebrew word translation is disputed heavily by the religions, but he even married a young woman or a virgin. It's some special word that, like I said, is argued over. But she was referred to by him in another sentence or another verse as the high priestess. She was assumed to be like a follower of his because he was like this wise prophet, of course. So I'm just trying to shine some light on, these questionable events in cults becoming nefarious is kind of broad and in some ways accepted by some people, and in other parts it's completely taboo.
This might be a little meta, but it's absolutely true. I used to be in a cult once, and my cult leader told me, to ease my concerns that I was in a cult, was that a cult is just what the big religion calls the little religion.
Yeah, that's kind of how it was explained to me, but I think that's brushing it off somewhat.
Well, it is, and it was pretty obviously predictive programming that was being used on me to get me used to the idea that, well, I was in a mind control cult, and I didn't realize it until the owner of a Malibu-based dispensary gave me a little too much OG Kush and a bong rip, and I suddenly realized how weird my older friend Steven was, and I probably shouldn't immigrate to India with him.
Dodge the bullet there.
I did. Because I think it started as like energy healing and energy clearing. In fact, the cult I'm going to talk about today, the leader of it, is beat for beat almost exactly like the leader of the cult I accidentally joined. And that's the problem. You don't necessarily know you're in a cult until it's too late.
Yeah, I would definitely like to also say that, for starters, the word occult has nothing to do with a cult, and that it's not just like blind sheep or dark force types people that join cults. It could be anybody. Anybody can take advantage of you if you're not protecting yourself and being aware of what's actually going on. So don't try to label any individual who's ever been involved with anything you don't agree with as being like an idiot from the get-go. They might have been brainwashed and are engineered to think a certain way.
Yeah, and that's another thing is a lot of these cults, they proselytize, healing and well-being and, going to heaven and all these nice, loving terms. And then they also, in order to indoctrinate, when they first get somebody interested, they do love bombing tactics. That's a psychological tactic that they use. They give them gifts and, try to give them social contact and stimulation in that way. The luring in is completely different once you're in the cult. At that point, you might realize things have gone wrong after that initial wave of positive reinforcement, but to coax you to join of your own free will, and then you're in it.
Yes, they're complicated mechanisms. Once you get involved, it becomes harder and harder to get out. Because first you have to admit you're wrong. You might even feel stupid. And the fact is that cults usually don't recruit stupid people. They tend to appeal to intelligent people. And they like to prey on people that have resources, money, jobs, property, stuff that will benefit the cult. So if you realize you're in a cult, it might really, really suck. It will be an ontological explosion in your mind. It might drive you crazy, but you should do your best to extricate yourself from it and get away no matter what, because you don't know at any minute when they could break out the Kool-Aid or, the penis scissors. It could just go bad at any moment. And if you think you're in a cult, you should get out. Although, to be fair, if you have a job where you work with other people, it's also a cult. But it's acceptable because it's for making money. And that's just how society works. So let's just get into it. What makes a death cult specifically? Mari has some bullet points to tell us.
While I was researching this, I started to notice a pattern, specifically when we're discussing death cults. You could call any number of things a death cult, but then there's other forms of it, like the polygamous. That's a sex cult about creating life and that kind of thing. Like, it can get violent and whatever, but death cults are specifically focused focused on the afterlife, doomsday, dying, or killing other people. Something I noticed across the board when we were researching this stuff is that death cults create hype and regular dependence on their own ideology or wisdom to their followers. So, for example, the leader or leaders would say something like, I talk directly to God and he commands you to do this. And you can't hear God because you're a sinner and you still have to do what he says to gain enlightenment or whatever. In some extreme cases, the leaders would even claim to be God embodied in a human body and directly command their followers to do things. Like I said, they tend to preach Armageddon or the apocalypse coming soon, which is a tactic to pressure victims into hasty decisions using urgency and fear. And that actually shuts down your frontal lobe and the reasoning parts of your brain. So you don't have time to reason. You just blindly agree.
It works really well for the big mainstream religions as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Not to say that it's not used anywhere else, but they pretty much all use this. The death cults do. They urge their followers to commit self-harm or harm others as a form of penance in order to gain good graces in their afterlife. And it's funny that they would encourage this, but the leaders tend to abstain or they postpone their own penance. So the promising the hope of salvation to somebody, especially someone who's desperate for hope, that can make many good people do horrific things. They also control people psychologically using these mind tactics we were discussing, and later resort to violence if they are continually defied by the followers. So if you speak up or you try to leave or you try to call the police, you'll probably get brutally beaten or murdered.
This is particularly true with the cult I researched.
Yes, and me too. And then I noticed that they often will have compounds or at least kind of a home base area with which they would use to isolate their victims. So if you were to join the cult and you get heavy into it, you're probably going to be encouraged to like leave your home or your family and get away from your friends and go live 24/7 at some commune or, some dude's apartment, or it could be anywhere. Usually it's a remote location that's isolated from anybody's relatives or friends.
That's a good indicator you're in a cult. You think the leader is God. He tells you what to think. You have to dress a certain way, eat a certain way. Your sleep is regulated. Your romantic life is regulated. And you're not allowed to talk to your family anymore. That's a really good indicator you may be in a cult.
A bad one at that. Because at some point during the intro, I was like, are you talking me into leaving the whole rabbit? Because this is a cult, but we don't force you to not talk to your family and stuff. Like, we want you to have a life. There's a difference.
I work on improving my mind control techniques and cult leader abilities every day. I'm just a slow learner. So just give me some time and I'm sure we can all brains out together sometime. I'm working it out.
You better get some carrots and lasers for that.
I'm working on it.
I'm out.
No, you're not. Come back. We have Shibas and noodles.
Well, the implication is this is a cool cult. It's not a death cult.
Well, we're not there yet. Before then, though, let's head over to Africa, our first continent on the list, where Mari is going to present a cult where you don't eat noodles.
The listeners have probably heard of a bunch of these famous death cults before. Originally, I was going to do it on the Japanese one?
Om Shinrikyo, and I'm not going to
Yeah.
let it happen until it's like at least a two-parter, because that is just too funny.
Yeah, there's other famous ones like Heaven's Gate. Everybody talks about Heaven's Gate. Like, there's a million videos on it. These were generally older, like they happened in the 90s and 70s and stuff like that. This one I found actually recently happened in the past few years.
Ooh.
Yeah. So over in Kenya, this is what the news media has been calling the Kenyan starvation cult. And local authorities and citizens have been calling it the Shakahola Massacre, which is where it took place in a forest called the Shakahola Forest. So this guy, Pastor Paul Mackenzie, he was a famous Christian fundamentalist preacher based in Kenya. He was recently arrested for preaching starvation as a means to salvation to his many followers. He was first a famous televangelist in Malindi, Kenya. His sermons and healing sessions were broadcasted on TV and social media using his patrons' donations, causing a mass following to swell. Like, he actually bought a TV station and broadcasted it on his own signal, and people would watch his social media and come to his church to get healed. The services were very much like what you would imagine an old-fashioned fundamentalist revival, where everybody packs into a big building and there's a preacher yelling and they're passing around the donation plates constantly, with a bit of televangelism mixed in due to the filming of each session to a broader audience. And there were the typical passionate appeals for tithings and donations. It was really all about the money. Thousands of people were interested and eventually came to join his congregation.
Did they have music?
Yeah, there was singing, dancing, speaking in tongues. We'll get to that, all that good stuff. While he was originally affiliated with parishioners from from various Assemblies of God, Pentecostals, and Methodist missionary churches in the area. He soon broke away and founded his own church known as Good News International Ministries.
It sounds pretty benign so far.
Well, he bought this big warehouse type thing and he started to do his services in there exclusively. And these church services are reminiscent of the trembling, tongue-speaking, snake-handling fundamentalist Christians in the U.S. that we recently discussed as well. With his TV and social media broadcast, he became famous and also infamous in the local village for the questionable methods of indoctrination that he would use, specifically finding young girls and trying to entice them to join. Then, after he overstayed his welcome in Malindi, because he was being sketch, he bought a compound near the Shakahola forest and has since officially retired, quote unquote, from his role as a pastor. Slowly over time, even in his televangelist days, Mackenzie's sermons would grow darker, foreboding and outright imperative. Before the compound was actually founded, he began to urge his followers to pull their children out of school, shun all formal education, avoid hospitals, deny any Western influences whatsoever, and prepare for the end of the world. Over time, a majority of the Malindi elder pastors' congregations left the village and followed Mackenzie to his compound, seeking prayer and healing from the famous preacher.
Right there, classic cult move. We got to get you isolated and away from mainstream culture as much as we possibly can.
I also found it interesting that he pulled so many people from the other pastors' congregations as well.
That's how you become a successful cult leader. You can't just do it one at a time. You have to take entire crowds that other people have accumulated and then make them yours.
Mackenzie was obviously a really good pastor. He was a good speaker. People were moved by his sermons, and so much so that he had convinced his flock that to be spared from hell in the end of times, they would need to give up eating and drinking in order to meet directly with Jesus Christ and immediately be brought to heaven when they died. Countless people followed these extreme rules in order to be saved and ended up dead. The autopsy reports from an overflowing morgue in Malindi indicate that most of the deaths, 80% or more, were of starvation. The rest consisted of asphyxiation, blood loss, or blunt trauma to the brain or vital organs. Mothers were not only smothering their own children to quiet the cries and hasten their passing into heaven, but anyone who struggled cried out in pain too loud or too long, and those who tried to flee were reportedly beaten to death or strangled.
Whoa.
Yeah, they weren't playing around. Pastor Paul Mackenzie took with him a group of bodyguards used to secure the compound. They were used to punish defiant initiates or to threaten visitors and outsiders with death if they did not leave the property immediately.
Hey, get away from here. We got people starving inside.
Well, they didn't want anybody to see it.
You got Hostess cupcakes? Get them the hell out of here, buddy.
So ultimately, Kenyan authorities were called in once the local tribe realized the danger of the situation, and the police uncovered numerous mass graves in the Shakahola forest behind the compound that were filled with emaciated and battered bodies laid neatly in rows. As of now, there's been more than 430 bodies exhumed so far,
What?
and that makes it one of the biggest, most impactful death cults, of all time.
Whoa.
This ranks up there with some of the big ones that we glossed over. I mean, everybody covers those other ones, but this one is this is a landmark. This is like a huge, huge death cult.
I just looked it up. That's still not even half the size of Jonestown.
I believe Jonestown's number one.
Oh, yeah, obviously. But even some of the more popular ones, not nearly as many. And they're still finding bodies today, so.
You also take into account that it sounds very much like most of these people were willing, whereas with Jonestown, it's not so much the case. There was a lot of unwilling people.
And he spent his load on that and will get no more. It sounds like this guy keeps reloading. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, here comes some more. Here comes some more. And he just, you know what I mean? So it's the sustainable amount of killing here that's impressive.
And people believe that they'll see Jesus. They believe that they'll go to heaven and they believe that the world will end. So.
And the fact that he's still alive and that he's in jail, I mean, he's probably trying to recruit people while he's in jail. So it sounds like he's still going.
Yeah, that's right. He and his closest followers remain in police custody, and some of them are even purportedly staging a hunger strike even while in jail. And that's kind of funny because they're going to get charged with another crime, which in Kenya, apparently self-deleting is considered a chargeable offense.
I'm just not hungry, okay? And neither are my friends.
Ironically, Paul Mackenzie never felt the need to fast himself and told his followers that he would guard the gates of earth and fast to death only after they were ushered into heaven. Wow, what a great guy.
He's got to guard the donuts.
He's sitting there chewing on a giant turkey leg, staring at starving people, being like,
No, don't worry about it. I'll lock the door behind me.
It's cool. You're going to heaven. You're going to heaven, man. Keep going.
It's sick. I mean, you gotta laugh at it because it is really sick.
Pass the gravy.
His anointing oil is chicken grease.
Oh, God.
KFC gravy. So, survivors and family members of victims describe their loved ones as delusional or hypnotized by the cult, completely unable to break away. A frequent observation noted by rescued cult members is that first the sick die, then the children, then the women, and finally the men. One mother said she had to leave the compound when she saw her 2-year-old suffering from hunger. She left with the baby, but her husband refused to go with her. She doesn't even know if he's still alive, as the cult initiates are strongly discouraged from interacting with the outside world once inside the compound. A sister, concerned for her nieces and nephews, lamented that after she offered to let them stay at her home for a while, her indoctrinated sisters seemingly joked that she wouldn't leave them there and that she would die with her kids. A grandfather who ventured into the forest with other concerned villagers after getting a disturbing call from a relative would find his grandchildren's malnourished bodies suffocated and buried in a mass grave.
Oof.
It's rough, dude. It's real. And it's the tribes people around the area are finally speaking out, and the police has got involved, and they're exhuming bodies every day. We don't even know how long or how many are still there. In the aftermath of this tragedy, the Kenyan government has begun cracking down on cults that preach violence and self-harm, as it has become a common problem in many rural areas. Some survivors even go so far as to denounce religion entirely or convert to other religions like Islam after going through this whole ordeal. So yeah, it's pretty wild shit, and I did not know that was going down right now.
Isn't there fasting in Islam as well?
Yeah, all the Abrahamic religions have some form of fasting holiday, but the point is that when the sun goes down, you can eat. Like, you fast in the daytime, not for the rest of all your days.
You convert to Catholicism and it just happens to be Lent and all you're allowed to eat is shoe leather for the next week?
Like, you can't eat beef, but you can eat fish.
Yeah, I hadn't heard about this death cult that Mari mentioned.
It's pretty fresh. So I just wanted to get that on everyone's radar because it's still up in the air right now. So
Yeah, it's pretty hardcore to like just be down a starve.
I didn't know about this cult either.
it's probably completely horrific to be there.
So the cult that I chose for this week was another one that I hadn't heard of. Any of you ever heard of the Divine Order of the Royal Arms of the Great 11?
No, but I want
No.
to join already based on the name.
Sounds fancy. Where do I sign up?
Yeah, it's pretty old. It's also known as a Blackburn Cult.
See, that sounds metal too.
Totally.
I don't know what a Blackburn cult is.
We're going to learn, though.
Malachor, why don't you tell us what a Blackburn cult is?
Okay, so I have been working on like compiling as much as the information on an esoteric or occult California, specifically Los Angeles, kind of maybe book or documentary, or just for my own personal study. And I don't know how I hadn't heard about this yet because it happened in Los Angeles. This group's origins and their activities are pretty strange. And of course, people died. So I thought we should tell the listeners all about it.
There's some sex too, isn't there?
I mean, yeah, a lot of hooking up and weird happening, but it's quite the roller coaster of drama.
That's what makes it a California cult, is it has a lot of drama.
Yeah, they used to say that the only thing that came out of Los Angeles was fruits and nuts. All the meat had to get shipped over here.
That's pretty-
Oh!
That's funny.
It's funny because it's true.
It's fun here. That's all I'll say. And Los Angeles specifically is pretty weird. All the good ways and all the bad ways you can ever imagine.
I'm a pistachio.
Those are my favorite kind of nuts.
Oh, that's why I'm a pistachio.
Aw.
But I should also mention that I read a book called Cult of the Great 11 by Samuel Fort as a primary source for some of the finer details in this episode. So to start, we should talk about the person who founded the cult, May Otis Blackburn, who was born in Storm Lake, Iowa in the year 1881, which is a very interesting time.
Whoa, so this is an old school cult that we're going to talk about.
They were a bit more common back then. Although usually it was like one dude with a bunch of wives and they would make like tractor equipment before they like began making shoes and then sputtered off into a company that still exists today. But the turn of the
Amish?
century, well, I mean, those are the ones who kept their structure. There were others. They just like...
They fizzle out, you know?
Yeah, like your town may have been founded by one. Now, the turn of the century was a time of rapid technological advance, and it saw the ascent of various types of machinery, manufacturing, medicine, and, of course, colonial expansion into places yet undiscovered by modern society. It was a time when anything and everything could happen.
I like Amish people.
The Amish were right.
Right, and at this time, a lot of the sacred orders and the secrets of the occult, they all started to spill out of their, sacred orders. May Otis's contemporaries would be none other than Aleister Crowley, Austin Osman Spare, long list of people who are remembered today as being legends.
So she was in the loop.
Right, and we're already like kind of throwing daggers at her, calling her a cult leader. But you can see how at this time, all this crazy stuff could have happened in the first place. But I digress. To continue the story, May got married to a man named Augustus John Wyland from Canada. She was only 16 years old at the time, and her husband was described as a gambling addict. John had knocked her up and left her before the baby, Ruth Angelina, was born in the year 1899. And this is a point where the story could end right there, right? She could have just been a single mother out in the middle of nowhere.
That's a bad time to be a single mom, too.
Yeah, it's pretty awful. It's not a good ending. But eventually, May gets a letter from California with news that her bitch-ass husband was shot and killed.
Oh, bang, bang.
So there's really like no hope that she's going to get any like meaningful help for, the biological daughter to have a biological father anymore.
Okay, so not only is she a single mom, but now she is also a widow.
Yes. So after this, May leaves Ruth with her mother and her stepfather so she can go visit Minneapolis. There she eventually hooks up with a man named Rudolph A. Schultz. They got married in 1901, but she didn't tell him that she already had a baby or that she was a widow.
Uh-oh.
At this same time, her family had moved to Washington State and she really wanted to see her baby daughter. May had told her new man that Ruth was her baby sister and that she really wanted to go see her and somehow get closer to them. Of course, she wouldn't tell him that she was actually a single mother widow, because that wasn't a prestigious role to have in society at the time. I don't think anybody wants that role, ever. So that's probably why she lied about it. In 1905, May and Rudolph moved closer to her family that lived in Washington State. They moved to Portland, Oregon, which is a state that's adjacent to Washington, with, her new financially stable husband, who provided May with a $125 allowance per week, which is like $4,000 today.
Ooh, so she can be buying them Birkin bags and them, I don't know what women buy with money, so.
Canning jars and more jute fabric.
So this is another moment where this story could have ended. She's like she doesn't have her kid living with her. She's with her man. She's got all this money. But no, she starts to show her true colors. This is where the fun begins. Here in Portland, she met a much more wealthy man named Fremont Everett, who was a lumber businessman.
Uh-oh. She's seen the way of the gold digger and she's hooked now.
May wanted this man, or his money really, but she was already married and, well, that's a problem in her eyes.
She had to find a man who had wood.
So she begins to tell another lie, one where her first husband, Augustus John Whelan, faked his death, and she just heard about this. And to be honest, it starts to get a little confusing and convoluted here on the details about what happens in the court between John and May. She even brings a letter like, see, my husband wrote me a letter saying he's dead, but he's really alive, this and that. And Rudolph calls her out at this point, accusing her of being a serial scammer, two-timing bitch probably, yada, yada, yada. She eventually snakes her way out of her marriage with Rudolph and runs off with Fremont Everett, who was also already married. So
Sacrilegious.
they were doing the bad stuff. And Fremont Everett had wrote her a ton of letters and telling her how he loved her so much. And he even gave her some property to live on and to manage herself. So she was also now a landlord and had pretty good income once again. But another significant moment comes up in 1915 when she remarries for the third, I already forget, is this the fourth time?
I think it's the fourth time now.
So the new husband, George Edward Bloom, had recently received a large amount of money in some sort of work-related accident. It's quite obvious that May hooked up with him because he had money. May's mother also remarries to a man named Walter Blackburn, who was the owner of some grocery store. Walter also had a son named Ward Blackburn, and Ward was a bit of a creep, but we'll get to Ward a bit later.
He ate too much Play-Doh as a kid?
Something like that. So skipping forward to 1917 now, George E. Bloom, May's new guy, gets sent to prison, leaving May with no man once again, and nothing holding her back from spending all her saved money she had left on whatever the hell she wanted. So May starts her own film production company in Portland.
Of course, that's what you do when you have a bunch of extra money laying around. I like this May lady.
That's what you do in GTA 5.
It is the West Coast, after all.
True. So Ruth, who was now 17, she started dreaming of being a Hollywood film star, of course. So May and her daughter Ruth got started on that path by making a silent film named Nugget in the Rough, and was the first movie production to come out of Portland.
Just what every girl wants, a nugget in the rough.
That sounds so dirty.
Right. And, this was 1917. And Hollywood was where the dreams become stars and the stars become dreams, not boring old Portland. So nobody in the larger scope of these films and the credit they deserve, nobody gave notice to the film. May and Ruth knew that they had to move down to Los Angeles, to Hollywood, to follow their dreams.
As we all know, that always turns out well. I can't help but notice the movie they made is actually about gold digging.
Oh.
I don't know. I didn't look into that.
That's what a nugget in the rough is in reference to, though, isn't it?
It's probably an inside joke.
Oh, man.
So they moved down to Los Angeles, but May and Ruth didn't realize just how competitive the movie business would be in the City of Angels. May could not land a director job here, and Ruth became a taxi dancer, which is basically the proto-stripper. You just splash your ankles instead of your boobs or your vajayjay. She was...
I mean, this is, 1917-ish. Makes
Right.
sense.
So she was paid to dance, basically. Not so glamorous, that's for sure.
If only she'd figured out twerking.
Have you ever seen The Banana Dance by Josephine Baker and other black dancers of the time around the 20s? Basically twerking, but wearing a skirt made of bananas.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. I've seen videos of that.
Sorry, you're going to have to show me.
Okay.
So it's no surprise that she married soon after. And like her mother, it gets complicated pretty quickly. Ruth first met a man named Edgar Jack Rickenbore and married him in 1919. But this man was supposedly jealous and had a violent side. They separated in 1921.
Ooh, that's only 2 years.
So the next year after that, she married a man named Arthur Carl Osborne. Arthur would later say that Ruth was not as passionate as he would have liked her to be, showing little affection.
Apparently, Arthur wanted a little more than ankles.
But this is probably because Ruth was on a different path, as now is a time that things got really weird. Ruth would go on to say, eventually, that she was here to do something that would make the whole world stand still.
That's really the only way to get a good look at the ankles is if they're standing still, so I understand.
So it's about this time that May Otis, the mom, gave up on her movie dreams, and she began to read the Bible like a lot.
That's always a good sign.
Of course, May was fascinated by the book of Revelations with all of its craziness. It is the best part of the Bible, in my opinion. So buckle up, rabbits, because this crazy train is going off the rails now.
I don't know if I should be scared. I think I should be scared.
Very much like Dee and Callie, or Aleister Crowley and Rose Crowley, did in their time, May and Ruth claim to have begun communicating with archangels.
That's usually an indicator that things are about to get messy.
Right, and the angels specifically were Gabriel and Michael. The angels were said to have come to May and Ruth to reveal to them that they both were the two witnesses spoken of in the book of Revelations. And to read from Wiki, May and Ruth claimed that the angels Gabriel and Michael were dictating a book to her and her daughter that explained all the secrets of the universe. Initially, it was titled The Seventh Trumpet of Gabriel, but later changed to The Great Sixth Seal.
These would later become adapted into Lady Gaga albums, of course.
I don't think you can fit all the secrets of the universe into one book or one song. And if it was going to be fit into one song, you guys ever remember Lamb Chop's Play Along, the song that never ends?
Yep.
That song.
It's still going in my head forever. But upon completion of this great work, the seventh seal, spoken of in Book of Revelations, will be broken in heaven, resulting in Armageddon. So the two women pretty much became heralds of the apocalypse. Gabrielle also told May and Ruth that they should follow this path laid before them, that if they did, both would live an eternal life and be given a mine full of precious stones and metals and jewels somewhere near Bakersfield, California, for some reason.
So they're going to have an eternal life on Earth?
Something like that?
So they're vampires.
So let me get this straight. You're the chosen one that they spoke about in Revelations, and you're going to have vast amounts of wealth, but you have to live in Bakersfield?
In a mine.
Lame.
Hope you like corn.
And meth.
Cargo shorts.
So furthermore, Gabrielle will sing the tunes of Cleopatra, to which Ruth would dance to, and she would be given the role of custodian of all the Egyptian dances.
Well, that came out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's apparently what was told to them.
These definitely sound like two white ladies.
It's Egyptian. It's exotic.
Right, so since Gabrielle probably only carried 4 denarii like a true Templar would, the two women needed to get capital to get started on this new mission. Ruth convinced her husband Arthur to give them some startup money. Arthur had to borrow this money from his job, and these angels demanded more and more money, eventually requiring the formation of a new religious order or cult.
If there's one thing I know about God, he always needs more money.
Yep.
To convince Arthur, May and Ruth told him that this book was going to pretty much give the whole world a blessed hard-on and cause a secretion of the holiest of waters from the vagine of all the whammons.
Whoa.
She just said like it was going to rock the world, basically, like Bowie or something.
Never write a rock album that a stripper can't understand.
Where's the bass line?
I got a bone to pick.
So they promised Arthur that he would be rich beyond his imagination once that book was completed. But this didn't happen fast enough. He could not pay his job back and was eventually fired.
Oh.
He then went to his parents for help, like a grown adult should, right? Afterwards, Arthur's mother and father came down to tell May and Ruth off. May exploded at the notion that the father showed up.
I'm mad.
Because she was like a matriarch goddess, right? And said that if Arthur's father ever came back, that she would just kill Arthur herself.
At least she's being honest. I mean, I think this is true for most marriages.
So this whole ordeal led Arthur to join the U.S. Army, and his life was essentially ruined. He went back to Ruth to say goodbye one more time, but when he got to the house, there was nobody there. Both the women were long gone.
Dude, they just took the money and ran. Basically, they were like, well, he can't give us any more. We've totally ruined his life. Time to move on to the next avenue. Sorry, I shouldn't say that.
I mean, true though.
So May and Ruth left Los Angeles, returning north to Portland, Oregon, to live with May's mother, who had married Walter Blackburn and lived with them both, along with Ward Blackburn, the creep stepbrother. It is about this time that the next evolution of the Blackburn cult starts. They began to spread the angel-dictated doctrine that May and Ruth were channeling, and this religion was probably based on much older ideas, which is a whole discussion, like, you know, if we were to analyze all the old religions, but we're talking about this cult today.
I mean, if Aleister Crowley can do it, why can't she do it?
Basically. But we don't know if these two women were, mentally ill, if they were actually visited by these angels. I doubt it. Were they, delusional? Was it a demon posing as an angel? We just don't really know.
It kind of sounds like what I call fake angels.
And these angels kept visiting. May eventually did write some pages down as a sort of preview to the grand work that she was working on. They would also put these few pages into book bindings with like a ton of other blank pages just to fool people. Of course, with the promise that the final product, if they did open it and read it, would be completed when the time was right.
Okay, so if the apocalypse is basically instigated from them finishing the book, what time do they have for publishing and distribution?
That's for her to know and you to find out. Buy cult bonds now. So Samuel Fort, the author of the book that I read, he describes the doctrine of this cult. The Blackburn cult believed that the universe was a living, breathing thing and that these breaths kind of gave birth to all existence by inhaling the old past universes and realities and then exhaling the new living universe that we exist in currently, or that we should be.
Isn't this how the yugas are described in Hindu beliefs?
Very similar. This just all has like a Christian coding over it. And at the beginning of all this, all life lived forever and remained young eternally. But when Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, it kind of reversed the dynamic of the universe. Instead of it creating new and fresh life, it now birthed life by destroying the new life and creating the old, rotten, ugly life that we live in now.
God damn it.
It's just like any other Gnostic myth. At the core of the universe in this belief was the tree of life, and maintaining the tree and its gifts were integral to the cult. And these were the only two individuals that were to guide all of humanity back to eternal life. May and Ruth, of course. They believed that they would become queens of the universe, which was kind of rare for this time. Not many cults were led by women, and they would even go on to predict, prophesize, or say that they would go on to rule from their Hollywood Hills mansion, and each would have 11 husbands.
This is like if some teenager reading Cosmopolitan was making up what they're going to do when they get older.
For real? This is what they actually did?
No, that's what they said they were going to do.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
They want to be polyandrists and stick
Well,
it to the man.
When you're
They
queen
just
of
want-
the universe, you need quite a bit of dick on tap.
They just want manservants.
Well, between the two of them, they could have had a whole tarot deck out of the dicks at their disposal.
Whoa.
Oh my God.
It seems like if you had that many husbands, they would have to start a waiting list to be with the wife, and if it just took too long, they'd just start beating each other off, I think.
It's just a circle jerk death cult.
Yeah.
We're getting there. We're working it up.
Hey, brother husband, I think Ruth is busy with number 6 tonight. What do you say, you come over to my bedroom and tickle my pickle?
So even though this all sounds wacky, having a couple battalions of husbandos, at your disposal, at the time,
It was wacky.
so the Blackburn cult still gained a substantial amount of followers. You kind of can't blame somebody for being down for something like this. Promises of riches and a role in saving the universe is pretty appealing on paper. Some people probably joined just because they want to be part of the current thing. We still kind of see this trend today.
I support the current thing. Isn't that a thing?
Sure is. In the early 1900s, dreams of being rich and famous were easier than ever. You didn't have to be a noble anymore. You can get lucky. It's the roaring 20s, for God's sake. This is the perfect platform for May to cash in on people looking for those types of luxuries.
And there was actually stuff to buy with money for the first time ever. Like they started having toasters and like coffee machines and all this stuff you could actually buy.
Like houses in a box. You could just build a craftsman home out of a kit.
Yeah.
To make you a better husbando, as opposed to a better wifey with a new blender.
One of the new members of the cult was a woman named Martha Rhodes. Martha had 2 biological daughters and 1 adopted daughter named Willa Rhodes. The husband and dad of the family owned a lumber mill, but it burned down in some sort of arson event.
Insurance fraud.
That's what it smells like. They seem like a run-of-the-mill, good Christian family on the surface.
Run of the mill.
That is until the details of what happened to their 9-year-old son are mentioned. The boy was allegedly buried in their front yard under the garden.
Oh, Jesus.
Furthermore, the neighbors told strange tales about the parents trying to bring back their dead son from the dead. You know, necromancy. Martha later claims she resurrected her son 5 different times. Top that, Jesus.
Whoa.
As strange as that might sound, it makes sense that Martha felt this was possible at the very least because she was heavily into Christian Science.
Oh.
Yeah, and she was a follower of Mary Baker Eddy's Christ Science Church.
Stuff is pretty out there.
You know, America's the home of magical, positive thinking magic. Like, if you just want it bad enough and you walk in the room with big energy, you can have whatever you want.
Yeah, there's a lot of celebrities that were, brought up in this particular kind of sect of Christianity where they believe that they can pray sickness away, bring the dead back with, enough holy praying and different arrays of worship, I guess. For now, just know that the Rhodes family is part of this whole story, but we should go back to see what May got into around this time. May was now living with the Blackburns, and she and the creepy stepbrother, Ward Blackburn, start to have an intimate relationship and got married. Some details about Ward. He was 1 year younger than May's daughter Ruth. He didn't bathe often, wore the same clothes every single day, had a funny mustache, and, well, he was a child molester.
Oh.
Samuel Fort explains in the book that May and Ward were accused of approaching children and trying to take them away, either by asking the parent or trying to be sneaky. It's not quite clear if they were ever successful in kidnapping, but there definitely is a possibility of that being true.
Yeah, back in the day, you could just go talk to the parents and be like, hey, I've got a job for your son. He's going to pick up my socks. What do you say? And they're like, sure, that'd be a great life experience. I can't feed this kid. Here, take him.
You got a nice suit on and a mustache. Here you go. Get to work, kid. That's why they had to make labor laws.
Dude, this story is starting to get dark, though. Like, it's going beyond Gold Digger into the realm of dark.
Yeah, it's down a mine shaft for sure. So remember Martha's adopted daughter, Willa? Well, May, being the leader of this cult, had a fondness for her and really liked her, and she appointed Willa as a priestess within the order.
Woo!
And like all cults, a name change is implemented. This is a tactic used for both good and bad reasons. On the negative spectrum of the idea is to completely detach one's identity from their past or their true self so that the cult can mold you into the desired shape, like a tool being cast in iron. Willa's new title was the Tree of Life, and that's a big deal given that the tree is central to the cult's doctrine.
To be fair, the Tree of Life usually is a woman. We found in many esoteric traditions, it starts as a goddess that turns himself into a tree to avoid, well, usually somebody like Jupiter doing the non-consensual with them. Or anyway, let's continue.
Right. So we have May Otis Blackburn, which is where the cult gets its name from, of course. Her husband, Ward. Her stepfather, Ward's dad, Walter. He sold his grocery store and joined the cult too. With the money he got from selling his business, he bought a printing press so that May could do the thing. The thing is, this new business was located in Los Angeles. The family rented a nice Victorian-style home at 1028 South Olive Street in what is now downtown Los Angeles. It's a recording studio now.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, it's a warehouse kind of thing now. The first thing they published was an 8-page sample of May's magnum opus, the same little pamphlet that I talked about before. These sample pamphlets were what followers had to shill out to potential new members or anyone they thought would give them money.
Are these the same ones that they left blank pages in?
Yeah, they just had a printing press for it now. That's the new edition.
You know, that's pretty clever because if you're just like handing them out and people find anything that's in that pamphlet interesting and they feel like there's missing information because there are blank pages, they'll probably seek them out.
Right. And they needed to get more and more followers. Ruth, in this effort, remarried a 17-year-old Italian-American named Samuel Rizzio. The Rizzio family were devoted Catholics with ties to the mob. But that didn't matter, nor did the cult's strange beliefs. They welcomed Ruth into their family, since Ruth promised that Samuel would be paid tons of money once the book was completed. According to the book I read for research, Ruth was seen as a queen within the cult, which meant that Samuel didn't have the kind of power that the times reflected. Usually men wore the pants in the house. Not in this cult. He was likely banned from working anywhere that the cult was not present. He was trapped in more than a few ways. According to letters written by Ruth, Samuel Rizzio was abusive and got fed up one day and left. But that's not the whole story, of course. According to one of the other cult members that worked at a pharmacy, May, Ruth's mother, May Otis Blackburn, went to the pharmacy to demand poisons. This was because Gabrielle demanded that Samuel be killed.
Ooh.
The woman who worked at the pharmacy, Eleanor, was not down with this idea. Eleanor would later tell the news that May would threaten members with death if they ever tried to leave the cult, or would threaten them with financial hardships that would bring them back to the cult, which would mean that May would threaten more death, possibly killing them on sight. Classic cult tactics, using fear and control. So, like I said, Eleanor refused May's request to procure the poison, but May returned soon after, expressing how the death was merely symbolic and it needed to happen. His Catholicness needed to die symbolically. May even said that the angels showed her a vision of a white vial that Eleanor herself would hand to May. Eleanor didn't like this at all. She went to her husband and both agreed that this all was a scam and that they needed their money back now. And Eleanor expressed this to May. May tried to explain to Eleanor that her husband was the manipulator, not her. Her real husband was actually one of the other male members already in the cult. Everything else was a lie. Eleanor said, all that noise and just left. No money, nothing. Soon after, May sent one of her girl goons to retrieve the poison. Fed up now, Eleanor handed over some chloroform and some water mixed with food coloring. Eleanor and her husband left the cult empty-handed, but the same night that the poison was retrieved, the cult conducted a symbolic death ritual on the beaches of Santa Monica to rid little Samuel of his Catholic faith for good. This night would in fact be the last time anyone saw Samuel Rizzio alive.
They're just gonna kill the mafioso's kid? Oh, this is gonna end well.
The cult claimed that Samuel left the ceremony just fine in his car and that something must have happened to him after.
Oh, okay.
But his family didn't buy that story.
Obviously.
Yeah, because, Samuel always checked in with them and he never would just take off like that. Something wasn't right. Samuel's brother was determined to find out what happened to his brother. He went undercover into the cult for a few months as a chauffeur for May. Eventually, he found his brother's belongings in the house and was told by May and Ruth that Samuel just left one day and that he would return eventually. This didn't give the Rizzio family any closure. They wondered if the authorities should get involved, but before they did, they were approached by an officer who told them to keep quiet about what May and the Blackburn Cult were doing. This officer was a member of the cult, apparently, and it scared the family so much that they did in fact keep quiet about it all. Yep, that's book closed for Samuel for now.
Oh man, see, that's what you gotta get, the cops in your cult.
Dude, that's kind of powerful if you're able to basically make the mob stop looking for their family.
So they let the cop come in and sit in on the circle jerk session in the lobby?
Yes. I mean, that's power.
I mean, it could have just been a cult member dressed up like a cop. I don't know.
I mean, that's how you became a cop back in the day. You just put the uniform on and, just talk like this. Say, I'm a cop.
I'm Detective John Kimball. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. Anyway, this isn't the end of the cult activities at all. No. This is quite the story. May and the cult moved location again, still in Los Angeles, at 427 North Vermont Street. May's mother, her stepbrother, Ward, came along too. At this new house, May's mother, Jenny, was willingly chained to her bed for 75 days.
What?
She didn't mind, and she chalked it up as some spiritual experience, ending with Gabriel breaking her chains or giving her the spiritual keys to her freedom. Ward's job at this new house was to be a sort of lookout, tasked with counting or documenting the cars that pass by. Things are just, moving along over here.
Hey, George, you think you could stand outside and count
Every single car?
Yes, Queen of the Universe. I'll do it. So far, I saw 3 cars today, ma'am.
I'll shower tomorrow. Anyway, moving forward a bit, in November of 1924, the cult gained some wealthy new members, Clifford and Alice Dabney. Clifford's uncle was the oil baron Joseph B. Dabney, whose bookkeeper was Raymond Chandler. If you look up the names, they were like rich people, and then then like the Great Depression happened and they had to find new jobs.
Raymond Chandler, like the author?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, these rich people, these were connected individuals, these new members.
Oh, man.
Clifford and Alice. Yeah. And that's where he got all his money. It also provided many networking connections for the cult as well. This would give May an idea to try to convince these oil barons that her book, that was still being worked on for all these years, would tell them the location of oil deposits. At the time, Los Angeles was like, I think, filled with like oil rigs or the things that drill down and get oil out of the ground.
Come and listen to my story about a man named Jed.
We still have a lot of it here under the city. We just haven't touched it. But anyway, this, of course, prompted the Dabney family to invest in the cult. It's around this time that Martha, William, and Willa, the Tree of Life girl, the Rhodes family, would finally come down to Los Angeles and live with the Blackburn Cult. Willa, being so important to the cult, needed to be involved now. She needed to be in Hollywood. She needed to be where everything was happening. And Portland definitely was not the place for the Tree of Life. May began to speak about how the astrological alignments would soon be exactly what was needed for her to properly finish the book.
Such bullshit.
The date she had in mind was in February 1925. What's interesting here is that another woman named Margaret Rowan was also predicting the end of the world to occur in February of 1925. She even claimed that specifically on February 6, 1925, that would be the end of the world. It would all be over. Margaret Rowan got really famous for her antics, being a doomsday prophetess, and as such, May saw the cash opportunity, and instead of claiming the world would end, she explained it would be the end and start of a new spiritual cycle. So like 2012, but without the Mayans.
Nice grift.
You see, the script never changes, does it? They've been doing
No.
this like 100 years ago. Nothing has changed at all.
Everything always comes back in fashion.
Right? So Martha, William, and Willa, of course, had to get to LA before that date to be saved, or to be involved in the saving of humanity, I guess. May had arranged for the Rhodes family to be moved into a house, and for a housewarming gift, Jenny, May's mother, gave the special girl Willa 7 puppies to raise.
7?
Yes, sir. Each of the dogs were named after the 7 tones on the musical scale. So literally A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Not do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do.
Oh, well, it might
Maybe.
be that.
7 dogs, and I'm not allowed to get another Sheba?
Well, 1 Shiba is equal to 7 dogs, so
All right, that's Sheba math for you.
yeah, Shiba math.
So New Year's coming up. It's 1924, but tragedy would strike on January 1st, 1925. Willa died.
Oh.
The cause of death was an ulcerated tooth. Now, this makes sense given the fact that the cult thought they could raise the dead and cure sickness with prayer. They certainly tried to prevent her death with such methods, but the miracle never happened. Willa was never given the needed medicine since that was forbidden in the cult. Willa was only 14 years old.
Jesus. So, like, not even dentistry?
Nothing, just prayer.
Yeah, that's a lot like Christian Science.
So Martha, failing to bring her daughter back to life, broke the news to May. May was devastated. Willa was the special one, the very tree of life. Through Willa was the path to eternal youth and life. But the angels told May that Willa will return someday in the future, but that this required them to keep the body and not hand it over to the authorities.
Sketch.
May ordered the body to be moved to her own house, where she kept Willa on the bathroom floor, covered all around with ice.
Wait, this is still in the 1920s, right?
30s, I guess.
That would
That
be
is
expensive.
crazy expensive.
My bathroom is a fridge now. It's pretty nice, guys. It's a walk-in fridge.
Oh, I got a corpse here,
Ugh.
but it gets a lot worse. The 7 puppies, well, they were sacrificed,
No.
and they were kept together with Willa in what was now the sleeping chamber, not to be disturbed by anybody.
Creepy.
I can't stand it when people just kill dogs.
Well, this cult practiced animal sacrifice all the time, they later found out, so they were into that. Willa stood there until the cult moved to Santa Monica, and they kept Willa and the dogs preserved until they moved again to Venice Beach, which is just one town south of Santa Monica. It's also where the Doors are from, the Dogtown Z-Boys skating story in the 1970s, all that stuff also happened there. Just wanted to mention that.
Wait, is that why they call it Dogtown?
I don't know. It's always been called that since I've been alive. I've never looked into why. But soon after this move, May was told by the angel that Willa was to be embalmed. They only were able to preserve her exterior. Her interior organs were completely rotten when they did do an autopsy much, much later. And Willa was buried on February 10th, 1926, 14 months after her death. She was buried on her back with her knees up to her chest, surrounded by her 7 dogs. All the 7 dogs were
What?
wrapped in a Yeah.
That's a weird position.
All of the dogs were wrapped in a white cloth and placed outside of Willa's coffin. Now, they didn't bury her in the yard like the 9-year-old brother before. Instead, the parents broke the floorboards open of their own room and put her down there, right underneath their feet.
Oh, morbid.
Yuck.
So that's it for Willa for now. Meanwhile, there's the cult to be ran by the leader, of course. Despite May still failing to produce the sacred book she had been working on for years now, her cult grew to over 100 members, and her followers didn't mind waiting a bit longer, I guess. They just kept giving her money.
Just finish the book. Just write it.
So they conducted outdoor rituals, which tripped out the neighbors a lot. And with a dead body under their floorboards, they couldn't afford to have anyone call the cops to come and investigate. So they planned to move again. Clifford Dabney, the rich guy, the nephew of the oil baron, he bought a 164-acre piece of land in Simi Valley outside of the city of LA. And it's much more rural back then, so there was nobody around to really complain. It is here where they built their compound, which was said to be very elaborate with stained glass and fine woodworking showcased. And there also started to be schism forming within the cult, one where the ideas that were presented by Christian Science clashed with the gibberish talking nonsense that May was all about. So on one side, you had a doomsday cult with the gibberish, and on the other side, ideas that the power to raise the dead through prayer were possible. There's a bit of a difference between the two. I can see that.
So you probably have people being like, well, if we can raise the dead through prayer and everyone's going to die because doomsday is coming, then what does it matter? Can't we just raise the dead after the apocalypse?
Do you know what you do when you're the cult leader and this schism starts happening?
What?
You're just gonna kill him.
Or you just make a new order. She developed a new one in 1926, and she called it the Church of the Divine Science of Joshua. And this was like, she just said everybody's also involved in this. Like, we incorporate all these ideas. She just blanketed everybody with the new one.
Man, she knows
And
what
they're-
she's doing.
Yeah.
Are you sure
seriously.
about that?
Well, yeah, because eventually on March 29th of 1928, the order was registered as a nonprofit organization. So they could really start evading the taxes now.
That's funny. In the notes, you have the alternate spelling of nonprofit as in a profit, and that's hilarious.
You see, she knows what she's doing. She applied for
I mean-
profit status. That's what. She's a genius.
Yeah, well, L. Ron Hubbard said to become a millionaire, you would start a religion. And this is exactly what he was talking about. And he was undercut by this woman.
He couldn't even get nonprofit status. They had to infiltrate the IRS to even try.
Yeah,
Oh man, if she came out with this shit in the 1970s,
no way.
boom, boom, she would have just rocket shipped off. Anyways, getting granted nonprofit organization status is the best news a cult can hear. You should see the party that Scientology threw when they got the news. They said the war is over.
Yeah, the war is over, dude. They were at war with the U.S. government, and they still managed to.
They won.
Oh my God.
So, the schism was dissolved, but the cult was still split up physically, with some members helping build a Simi Valley compound and others remaining in Los Angeles to spread the word and to hand out the short essay that May wrote years before. The compound itself was later referred to as the Harmony Hamlet by the LA Times. At the start of it, it was just a bunch of tents. Then it was built up to a few buildings and progressively got more and more elaborate. One of those buildings was the Golden Throne Temple. It was the big fancy building with all the stained glass, of course.
Sounds kind of like Burning Man.
And it's here that May implemented new rules, like making it forbidden for members to eat apples simply because Adam and Eve ate one. No T-bone steaks because that was mocking Jesus on the cross. No walnuts because they made walls, goddammit.
These people are Americans, aren't they?
Yeah, the members had to put butter on their feet. They had to smoke a certain amount of cigarettes per day at a certain rate
Okay.
and had to eat sugarless pie.
I'm kind of down with those last three things.
What's with the butter, though?
I don't know.
Maybe this is the secret to Paula Dean's everlasting life.
They were probably into foot stuff.
Just like eating a bite of sugarless pie, and they're like, "Ugh, this is no good." It's like, lick my feet, see how it tastes now.
Maybe it has something to do with like toxins and feet meets like the kind of coconut pulling people do, like coconut oil pulling, where they swish it around in their mouth to pull toxins out. Maybe
Yeah.
it's like the butter pulls the toxins out of the foot.
Yeah, all of this stuff, like, at least I can still eat my Discordian hot dog on the holy day. But aside from that, it's kind of strange how many laws and rules, and she just pulls shit out of her ass. And like you were saying, Malachor, it's like, would be totally at home in the 70s to the 90s Chinese New Age movement kind of stuff. Because
Totally.
it's just totally nonsensical rules and regulations. And I think it's really just to test the followers and to give them reasons to punish people for slipping up.
You know why they're slipping up? Because they got butter on their feet.
I mean, you can eat a sugarless apple pie, but god damn it, if that's an apple pie, you're gonna get whipped.
All right, so moving on to the story. On February 3rd, 1927, 29-year-old woman named Louise Volz went missing. She was never found, but she did live near the compound in Semi Valley. She was not a member of the cult, but her husband and son told the press that Louise did have a fascination with the rain, and that night, when it rained, she just kind of went for a walk, to enjoy the rainfall. But her son says that he saw his mom get pulled into a black car, which then drove off afterwards. This car was similar to the one that we would later find out that May Blackburn drove. Samuel Fort, in the book that I read, presents a few ideas as to what may have happened to Louise, but none of them are supported by physical evidence. It's just all assumptions. We don't really know if the Blackburn cult had kidnapped her, but the cult already had a history with missing people, some of the members being accused of kidnapping, and like I said, Louise lived very close to the cult grounds. Moving on again, as 1928 came around, this year would see the downfall of the cult. On January 1st, May ordered Clifford to hand over all the deeds to the oil business assets.
Ooh.
All his money, all his property. She claimed that the angels demanded this to be so. She informed him that if he didn't comply, that he would end up dead. Fearing for his life, he followed her orders. Later, on February 27th, a car dealer was driving around and was ran up on by a young lady who was scared for her life and was claiming she needed to escape and get away. Two armed men helped force her out of the car, leaving her on the street. We never knew who this girl was. The car dealer drove to the compound to ask questions, but was turned away. In March, another cult member died, Frances Turner. She became paralyzed and could no longer talk. Her sister was also a cult member, so taking her in for proper treatment was a no-go. Instead, they took Frances to May's cabin, where she had placed her under some chicken wire with some very hot stones placed on top of her. Frances died 2 days later, apparently. The coroner autopsy says she died from leakage of the heart, but I think they grilled her to death.
Totally.
There's another story, which was later told by another cult member, Claude Stefan. He claimed that the cabin was actually built kind of like an oven on top of a hill, and it got extremely hot in there. He says that Frances died almost certainly. Definitely didn't take 2 days. Furthermore, Claude claims that the bricks were then used to build other structures in the compound and some of the pathways around the property. May also ordered a group of followers to join her in a journey into Death Valley with 2 horses, and those 2 horses were named the Jaws of Death. All the cult members almost died out there in the desert, and maybe they did kill somebody out there. We don't know. But upon the return from this stupid journey at the compound, they sacrifice both of these horses, of course, because they're just that crazy.
Animal sacrifice is fun.
All right, so to try to wrap up this whole tale with some haste and get to some more of the juicy bits, Clifford Dabney was fed up with May. He decided that it was time to deal with her. Not because members were dead or missing, or the fact that a teenage girl was mummified and buried in a bedroom. He instead sued May Otis Blackburn because she never wrote that book.
No, just write the book.
After all the money and resources were handed over to May by threat of death, she never came through with the final product, and it was time that she met justice. The law didn't understand exactly how a smart businessman like Clifford can be swindled by this old hag. There was no way that could happen to a man in the 1920s. The whole stereotype, right? Women don't know toxic masculinity, whatever. But eventually, Clifford had a meeting with the district attorney and explained everything. The police started to investigate in the limited capacity they could because it was a religious order and those groups do have human rights, much like how a cop needs a warrant to enter a house if all he has are claims of a crime. And he did willingly give her all his stuff, so you got scammed, bro. But they're trying to help him. And the LA Times also began to investigate because the word started to spread. The cult was more famous than ever now, for wrong reasons, of course. May and Ruth were arrested for fraud. The paper's headline with the story that cult leaders were arrested. Doomsday cult prophets arrested. And this prompted an anonymous caller to inform the police about Willa's body buried in a house in Venice Beach. The police questioned Martha and William Rhodes about Willa. Eventually, the parents admitted that Willa was in fact kept under the floorboards, but only for the meantime, as she was set to return someday.
Bro, she's gonna wake up, I promise.
The cops, of course, were bewildered and shocked upon exhumation of the girl and the puppies. The press was present, and they did take photos. The Rizzio family told the cops about Samuel going missing too, but they never found a body or got any evidence to accuse them of murder or kidnapping. So the whole nation would eventually hear about this. Eventually, once the police, along with the press, gained access to the compound itself, they saw all sorts of strange stuff. They found tons of animal bones, that many of those were canines, horses, pigs. Some others claimed that the cult was responsible for the killing of a man who was found brutally mutilated in a chicken coop in Huntington Beach.
Oh.
All of that still didn't show up in court, though. May and Ruth were charged with 15 counts of fraud, 3 of which were dropped. May was locked up, but still had control over her cult from the inside. She didn't give them access to any of the money for food or anything until she was released, she claimed. Eventually, she was let out on a $10,000 bail.
That's like $1 bajillion in the 20s.
Pretty a lot for then.
Wow.
But Clifford was not going to let her off that easily. He filed another lawsuit a month after her release on the fact that he had to give her the property under threat of death. May was arraigned again on December 4th, 1930. She had pled not guilty, so a trial was needed. Her defense was that she was merely following the order given to her by the angels. The court didn't buy this, and she was sent to San Quentin with 7 convictions of grand theft. Her followers then began to send death threats to Clifford Dabney, even calling him on his telephone, saying that the worst has yet to come. May had also filed for her case to be overturned on the ground that her crimes were only supposed to be financial crimes, and that the investigators began to attach the disappearance of Samuel Rizzio to her case, along with some of the other press findings, and this would make the jury and everyone else biased. She would be seen as automatically guilty for grand theft because people believed she killed Samuel or something, even though there was no evidence. The courts, in their vast wisdom, agreed that was unfair, so they let May Otis Blackburn walk free.
Oh!
And after this, the cult just disappears. May did eventually die in 1951 as a free woman, and there really isn't more to be said. No justice was served. Willa's parents were not even arrested either. It just kind of ends there.
Woo!
The f***.
Wow, so not only was she maybe one of the most successful female cult leaders in history, she got away with it!
Yeah, totally and completely. And arguably, it's funny because she preached so much against patriarchy and had a matriarchal structure in her society, yet the patriarchy just let her go because, you know, she's just a dumb woman. She doesn't know what she's doing. Like,
I don't know. I think subconsciously, like Hecate's dark side was like involved somehow because there's like this necromancy and dogs involved. I don't know.
well,
It's just
for
a little
sure.
weird.
I feel that vibe, but at the same time, for them to let her off like that, it's like if she were a dude, she would be on death row.
Yeah, I really wish there was like a big banger of an ending, but it's really just she got free and they never heard from the cult again.
You know, in Canada, if it was her first offense, it would just go under the rug.
Did she ever write the damn book?
No,
Oh,
it's a scam, dude. Get with it.
8 pages. Half of them are blank.
Also, you know, talking about something that you're going to do is way more satisfying. It gives you tons of dopamine, but you don't actually have to follow through. And she obviously was too crazy to follow through on anything that had any kind of logic attached to it. So no, there was no book, and there was not going to be a book. She was using it as leverage to get people's money and trust.
I'm gonna write the book and attribute it to her and say I found it in the desert or Long
Yeah,
Beach.
you could
or
do that.
Something like that.
Pull an Adam Smith on that shit.
But if you'd like to hear about the Order of the Solar Temple, a reformation of the Knights Templars, but as a freaky new age vegetarian death cult with direct ties to the Nazi party, then please visit www.patreon.com/thewholerabbit, where for just $5 you can get the second half of this episode. But not only that, you can get the second half of all our episodes, which are now integrated conveniently into Spotify. I'll send you a 5x5 high quality vinyl sticker of our Big Bunny Baphomet cover art and the secret keys to our Discord server, where you can talk about that one time that one cult leader did the weird thing, and we'll talk about it there. Thank you, everybody. Eat carrots and shoot lasers.
Pew, pew, pew.
Pew pew.